Now, what's the correlation between all of these?
I don't know.
A rather important one. It's something called the lipstick effect, which is basically a retail and economic theory which states that when an economy is going through a recession and consumers don't have enough cash to make any large purchases, they still end up spending on smaller items which give them that dopamine hit. For example, going out for a movie or buying a lipstick. It's basically to give people a semblance of normalcy during hard times. So if you think about it, the entertainment industry or Bollywood is actually recession proof. In fact, this made me realize something a little more profound. So a few years ago, I had visited Greece and got to see the Theatre of Dionysus, which is basically a 2,600 years old Greek theatre in Athens. It's supposed to be the first theatre ever constructed, built in 6th century BC.
Nice.
It was an absolute spectacle. Now, I remember standing there and thinking that this human quest for entertainment, for stories, for escape, it's not just old, it's literally ancient. It's fundamental to who we are as a species.
Amen, sister. Preach.
And you know, when something has existed for so long, chances are it's going to stick around. There's actually a name for this as well. It's called the Lindy effect.
Okay.
It's the idea that the longer something non-perishable has been around, the longer it's likely to be around in the future. So books, technologies, ideas, and yes, forms of entertainment. Now this led me to my second thesis around Bollywood, that an industry which solves such an innate human desire, I don't think is going to perish anytime soon. But then what is all this speculation about it losing relevance? Because we all have to agree that there has definitely been a massive shift in the industry post-pandemic. So as always, I decided to dig deep to really understand what's going on here. More than the rise of South Indian cinema, OTT, democratization of content, that is, anyone and everybody can become a content creator now and entertain you, I feel like there's a fundamental problem with Bollywood unit economics which isn't making sense anymore. The value chain of the business is broken. So I looked at all the financials of the recent movies and I was like, we need to show you guys this. So here I am. Okay, here's a little experiment. I'm going to show you guys the budgets of all the recent films and I want you guys to predict how much they actually made on the box office. Any guesses?
Not a lot.
As you can see,
And
the
I won't
numbers,
be able to think about
lot
this
of
converting
flops lately. But this is not even the interesting part. What actually caught my attention was these massive budgets. That's when I started questioning, is this how much it costs to create a movie? I mean, does it truly cost 700 crores to create a movie like this? When this film, by the way, which won the Oscars for its visual effects, was created with just 135 crores.
Yeah, Godzilla -1, great film.
See, at some point, even at EOS, we would like to create films for you guys, which we can actually put out on YouTube. So I wanted to understand the whole business model further, so I dug deeper to learn about how movies are funded, how they make revenue, and how it's actually evolved through the years. So you see, most people think that a producer invests his money in films, but unless it's a big production company like Dharma or Yash Raj, most producers get money for their film from banks, financial institutions, or corporate entities.
Yep.
But I also found out something very intriguing here. You know, the biggest source of funding for Bollywood films before the 2000s was actually the underworld. Let's go back in time a little. So before 2001, Bollywood did not have the status of an industry. So this lack of recognition meant filmmakers and producers could not secure loans from banks or financial institutions. So as a result of this, many of them turned to the underworld for funding. Now this illicit connection provided the necessary capital to produce films, but also brought a host of problems, including the influence of criminal elements in the industry. You know, back then they could not raise ticket prices even if the film had a huge star. Special permission from the charity commissioner was required, and even then the theatre owners had to pay 50% of the ticket price as the entertainment tax. But in 2001, Bollywood finally received industry status and everything changed. Out went the underworld and in came the corporates.
In 2001?
So this entry of corporates literally transformed the industry by bringing in professional management, structured financing, and marketing strategies. This era saw the introduction of new revenue streams such as satellite rights and multiplexes, which basically diversified income sources beyond just box office collections. As of today, here are all the revenue streams for a Bollywood film.
Yeah, there's a lot. Music rights is a big one.
Now this was all great, but this is also where the problem starts. Now these corporates also brought one more thing with them, that was fat paychecks for actors. According to producer Ratan Jain, it was after the introduction of the corporates that stars like Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan and Akshay Kumar started charging high fees for their films. See, at least back then, while corporates hiked their fees, actors still had to prove their worth at the box office. But if you look at the correlation between box office performance and actor fees today, the numbers are absolutely bonkers and it just doesn't make sense anymore. Let me give you some examples. Let's look at Akshay Kumar and Tiger Shroff's Bade Miyan Chote Miyan, a movie that was so bad that it not only got thrashed by the audience and the critics, but was also a big financial disaster. And while the producer lost most of the money, the film's leading stars took home a combined of 140 crores as fees. This is literally 40% of the film's budget. Even the leading actors of Fighter, the second highest grossing Bollywood film this year, got a combined of 120 crores, which is again about 48% of the film's budget. Honestly, the examples are endless. Even a small film like Merry Christmas had the bulk of its budget going to actors as fees. The film itself did not even manage to recover the actors' fees, but this trend has become so big in Bollywood that producers are literally not able to make films now. And this is what I meant when I said that the unit economics of Bollywood just don't make sense anymore. Karan Johar even went so far as to say this in an interview.
Those movie stars that are asking for 35 crores are opening to 3.5 crores. How is that math working?
I guess when and if we actually end up making a film, you guys will end up seeing our faces only, because these actor fees is not making any sense to me. Putting the masterclass link in description, see you there. Now I also wanted to understand this further, that what is actually causing this? Do these actors just quote these random numbers and the producers have no choice but to pay? Because this is literally putting a whole industry in jeopardy. So we actually found three main culprits that I'll break down for you. First, let's look at the OTT platforms. So you see, the impact of Netflix, Amazon Prime and other OTT platforms on reducing footfalls in theatres has become a common debate across the world. We ourselves talked about it in our previous video on Bollywood. In fact, according to a recent survey by Ormax, even though footfalls in theatres have increased from last year, they are still below the pre-pandemic levels. Now, even though OTTs have impacted theatre footfalls, like we said earlier, they also opened up a new revenue stream for producers, or should I rather call it a shield, especially for the big budget mediocre films. Why do I say this? Take a look at this. See, for a big budget Hindi film, which basically means a film with a budget of 200 crores, the OTT platforms pay 100 crores. That's literally half of the film budget. Combine this with satellite and music rights and you've got a guaranteed hit even before the film releases or bombs at the box office. Now on one side, this was pretty helpful for the producers during the pandemic. For example, for films like Sadak 2, Bhuj and Lakshmi, where you might have not even seen or heard of the films, they were sold for hundreds of crores to OTT platforms. Had these films been released in theatres directly, they would not even earn half of what they earn through OTTs. Because honestly, just look at the IMDb ratings. Sadak 2 is the lowest rated Bollywood film. Now these ratings are important because according to a statistical exercise, an extra 1 point rating on IMDb leads to 17 more crore at the box office. Now, this trend of OTTs paying huge prices for bad films did not end during the pandemic. Kartik Aaryan's Shehzada, for example, was acquired for 40 crore by Netflix, which helped it recover more than 76% of its cost. But if you look at the box office, guess how much it made at the box office? Just 32 crores. If you compare this to the original movie, which it was a remake of, had earned 280 crores. Now you see, because OTTs kept paying big amounts even for bad films, the producers kept giving in to actors' demands for higher pay. I was reading a book, Bollywood Box Office and Beyond, The Evolving Business of Indian Cinema, by this author and film journalist called Lata Jha, where she mentioned that if the Bollywood business really wants to create value addition for everybody, the demand and supply side needs to be fenced off from each other. Basically, financial dealings of producers needs to be separated from the demand for high-cost stars. We really need more good talent in Bollywood instead of depending on the same A-listers who charge these exorbitant amounts again and again, and more investment needs to go into production quality, things that actually improve the quality of films if we want any value addition. But I feel like the pressure on these production houses and studios to provide a hit is so much that they're also trapped. And as we read more into it, we realized that they themselves are making the problems worse through all sorts of shady practices. One which we found was corporate bookings. Now you must be like, what does corporate bookings have to do with this? Hear me out. So corporate bookings are basically companies buying more movie tickets for their employees. Now this was a normal thing for a long time, but according to trade analysts, in the last few years, corporate bookings have actually become a tool not for entertaining employees, but for manipulating